So what's just happened is genuinely one of the biggest attacks on information I have ever seen, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, and I really feel it's important to cover this on the channel. Wikipedia just lost a challenge against the UK government, and it sets a really worrying future for us being able to access information online. But first, we need to actually talk about why Wikipedia went against the UK government. So with the Online Safety Act, of course you know that you need to have ID to access many different websites, but that's not really black and white. If a website has a certain amount of monthly visitors, they'll fall into a different set of criteria. So for example, if they have tens of millions of people every single month visiting their website, they'll fall into a higher category than a website that maybe only has 100,000 visitors. That's basically because the government, and to be honest, the only thing the government has correctly done is assume that a website with more traffic may potentially hold more significance, and that is the case. It's fully understandable. So in the cases of websites that actually get more traffic, the government needs to make sure that those websites in particular uphold the Online Safety Act. The government can't worry about Joe Bloggs' garden fencing website and whether there's nude images on there. That's not the government's priority. The government's priority is the bigger websites with more significant traffic. Now, when it comes to gooning websites, that's obviously one problem. That's something that, yes, we all completely disagree with it, but at least that's even 1% linked to the government's claims of protecting children. But when it comes to websites like Wikipedia, this is where the problem becomes very, very, very transparent, even to the less smartest individuals out of all of us. Wikipedia fundamentally isn't a naughty website. Wikipedia is the go-to place for quick, simple, peer-reviewed information. And when I say peer-reviewed, I mean community-reviewed in the sense that it's the world's biggest community project. Wikipedia is the place where you can find out pretty much any information about anything at a quick glance and some quick notice. And for many years, obviously now we have things like AI and all of that, but for many years, Wikipedia has been the very basis for us just to find out quick, informative, and for the most part, correct information. For all intents and purposes, Wikipedia is the bastion of information online, and the government wanted to take action on them. They wanted to make sure that Wikipedia introduced verification for all of its users. So if you are amending an article, providing information, providing context, your identification and your name will be linked to that. Essentially, it's the same as every other website, whereas if the content is deemed somewhat over the age of 18, you need ID anyway, but also they wanted to collect identification for the people that submitted content to the website, basically as a form of accountability for the content that was submitted to Wikipedia. Now, the actual specifics of the government request to Wikipedia aren't widely understood, and that's because they haven't been published. From what we understand from Wikipedia's viewpoint is that the government wants Wikipedia to collect all of the information, identification of its users that submit content to the website. But from the government standpoint, what we've been made aware of, once again, this is a grey area, but until we get more information, I'm just outlining roughly what this is. The government are saying that Wikipedia needs to collect identification to verify people's ages. And the whole argument from the community and of course Wikipedia is that collecting information for people to be able to access information doesn't seem right. In fact, optically, it looks like the government are trying to prevent people from accessing information. I mean, there's no other way to explain that. There just isn't. So Wikipedia decided to raise a case against the UK government. And it wasn't necessarily a legal case, but it was a legal challenge to basically set precedent for every other company to follow. And it was announced yesterday that Wikipedia loses challenge against the Online Safety Act verification rules. Wikipedia has lost a legal challenge to the Online Safety Act rules, which it says could threaten the human rights and safety of its volunteer editors. The Wikimedia Foundation, which is the non-profit which supports the online encyclopedia, wanted a judicial review of the regulations, which could mean Wikipedia has to verify the identities of its users. But it said despite the loss, the judgment emphasised the responsibility of Ofcom and the UK government to ensure Wikipedia is protected. The government told the BBC that it welcomed the High Court's judgment, which will help continue our work implementing the Online Safety Act to create a safer online world for everyone. Okie dokie. Judicial reviews challenge the lawfulness of the way in which a decision has been made by a public body. Public body? The Online Safety Act was not by a public body. it was created by a private company. In this case, the Wikimedia Foundation and Wikipedia editor tried to challenge the way in which the government decided to make regulations covering which sites should be classed as Category 1 under the Online Safety Act. The strictest rules sites must follow, and that's what we were talking about earlier. With the sheer amount of traffic that Wikipedia receives, it's classed as a Category 1 website. Now, before we get into the rest of the information, a very quick shout out to private internet access. If you're looking for a VPN who publishes all of their reports, doesn't submit data to any government requests, and also supports the channel, you can get 4 months free and 86% off at the link down below. Back to the video. Now, Wikimedia, which by the way, they're the parent company of Wikipedia. Basically, Wikimedia are the organization that controls Wikipedia and a few other entities. They argued that the rules were logically flawed and too broad, meaning a policy intended to impose extra rules on large social media companies would instead apply to Wikipedia, which is 100% correct. I feel like the very nature of social media versus Wikipedia are entirely different, very different concepts entirely. In particular, the foundation is concerned that the extra duties required if Wikipedia is classed as a Category 1 would mean it would have to verify the identity of its contributors, undermining their privacy and safety. The only way it could avoid being classed as Category 1 would be to cut the number of people in the UK who could access the online encyclopedia by about 3/4, or disable key functions of the site. Now, this is the big problem with the classification system that the government have introduced. The only way that Wikipedia could get around these regulations is to basically limit access to information to people. So rather than the government banning us from using Wikipedia or banning us from using all of these websites, they've gone the backdoor route by making it impossible for these websites to be seen by people unless they have to introduce something as insane as verification. And obviously the government know that Wikipedia would have fought against this. Wikipedia would not allow all of its users to submit identification for many key reasons, one of them being whistleblowers. A lot of information that's come up on Wikipedia in the past has been from insiders, people sharing information that they shouldn't share. It's people putting information into the light for people to be able to publicly access that sometimes could risk people their jobs or risk people their livelihood. So the very nature of people being anonymous on Wikipedia is one of the strengths to make sure that the sources and the information on it are actually accurate. It doesn't hinder the accuracy of the content on Wikipedia. I mean, if we go back 15, 20 years, yeah, Wikipedia was a shit show, let's be honest. But today it is far more accurate and reliable than it's ever been before. And this is where the government have been really sneaky, where they've gone the backdoor route. They've tried to basically say to Wikipedia, look, these rules won't apply to you if you reduce your users, if you make your content less available to people, if you slow down, which by the way, Wikipedia already can't really afford to slow down. They already have PayPal donations and stuff open because they don't run ads. They are a foundation. So in theory, the government's given them two options here. One, they have to collect verification on identity from every single one of their users, which would go massively against what Wikipedia stands for. Or two, they essentially have to make themselves completely not profitable, remove all web traffic, make the information on their websites inaccessible to people, which would cause them to close down. Basically, one of the biggest individual resources for information on the internet will be gone. This is a problem. Like a serious problem. Now, the article goes on to say, left the door open. In the end, the court rejected Wikimedia's arguments, but Phil Bradley Schmeek, lead counsel at the Wikimedia Foundation, said that the judgment did not give Ofcom and the Secretary of State, in Mr. Justice Johnson's words, a green light to implement a regime that would significantly impede Wikipedia's operations. And the judgment makes it clear that legal challenges could be possible. So this brings us to what happens next. Well, Wikimedia could potentially challenge Ofcom's decision-making if the regulator did ultimately decide to classify the site as a Category 1. If the effect of making Wikipedia Category 1 meant that it could not continue to operate, then other legal challenges could follow. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because the UK government can't decide to shut down a business. We actually have legal protections that mean that they can't just shut down a business for sharing factual information. It's actually protected technically by the Whistleblower Act. So that's why the government are going down the route of trying to basically censor different websites, because it's the easiest way to put companies out of business by their own volition. It doesn't look like it was the government's fault publicly or optically speaking. It just looks like the website's failed. But the government wouldn't walk into the office of Wikipedia and say, right, we're closing you down right now. So basically, if Wikipedia is classified as a Category 1 website and it hinders the operation of the business or challenges them financially to the point where they would struggle to operate, that could be raised as an issue with Ofcom rather than the UK government. And then that could go to a completely different case in general. So technically speaking, at the moment, as it stands, Wikipedia lost. But they've lost the battle and the war is still very much ongoing. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it informative. If you do want to support the channel, make sure you check out private internet access at the link below, and make sure you subscribe as well, because I'm trying to grow the channel. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.